The Generals of the Yang Family, Chapter 47.
We're opening up the pages of the classic military romance, The Yang Family Generals, and we're focusing strictly on the events of Chapter 27.
Right.
Our mission here is to trace how a single desperate siege at the city Jiangsu spirals into a massive coalition war that just defies every single expectation of combat.
And, to understand the sheer scale of the disruption here, we really have to look at the baseline reality of the Song Dynasty defenders inside Jiangsu.
Set the scene for us a bit.
Well, a siege is already a high-stress, attritional environment, right? The defenders are basically locked in a box.
Yeah.
They're managing dwindling resources, they're exhausted, and they are relying entirely on the physical integrity of their walls.
Just hoping the bricks hold up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the enemy waiting outside those gates, they are not behaving like a conventional siege force. The text explicitly states that this besieging army is utilizing supernatural abilities.
Right, which is just, it's such a curveball.
It is. They are wielding forces that bypass the physical walls entirely. They strike directly at the psychology of the defending troops.
And we jump straight into the friction of this setup with a Song general named Lu Min.
Oh, Li Min.
Yeah, Lu Min is staring down this seemingly impossible enemy, and his response is just pure, unfiltered bravado.
Which is a choice.
A huge choice. He decides to break standard siege protocol, charge right out of the gates, and take the fight directly to the enemy commander, a guy named Xu Tianxin.
And right there, that introduces an immediate tactical vulnerability.
How so?
Well, in siege warfare, the defender's primary advantage is static fortification. You have the wall.
Right, you stay behind the big, heavy door.
Exactly. By riding out, Lu Min is surrendering that advantage. He's trading structural defense for mobility, which is incredibly risky.
So he rides out and he initiates this verbal exchange with Tianxin.
And Tianxin immediately goes for the psychological throat.
Yeah, he does.
He just completely dismisses Lu Min as, a defeated general looking for death.
And Lu Min gets so fired up, he responds by threatening to wipe Tianxin's forces off the map entirely. He demands they retreat or lose every piece of armor they have.
Pure bravado.
Completely. So he spurs his horse, their weapons clash, and almost instantly, Tianxin turns his horse and flees.
Right.
Now, looking at the historical mechanics of this, executing a feigned retreat, it's not just turning around and running away, is it?
Oh, no. Far from it. The feigned retreat is arguably the most mechanically complex maneuver an ancient cavalry force can attempt.
Really? More than a charge?
Definitely. I mean, think about it. A horse is a prey animal. Its basic instinct in chaos is flight. When you train a cavalry unit to charge, you are overriding that instinct to run.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. So if you then command them to turn their backs and flee, but without breaking formation or triggering a genuine, panic cascade among your own mounts.
Oh, I see. You're trying to fake a panic without actually starting a real one.
Exactly. You are asking for supreme discipline. The goal is to modulate your speed so perfectly that the pursuing enemy believes they are genuinely chasing down a routed foe.
You want them to get greedy.
Yes. You want them to break their own lines in the bloodlust of the pursuit.
And Lu Min, who is just fueled by adrenaline and the sheer ego of thinking he actually intimidated this terrifying commander, he takes the bait hook, line, and sinker.
That completely falls for it.
He gives chase, but he barely covers the distance of a stone's throw before the entire operational environment just fractures.
It completely breaks down.
Right. Before Lu Min can close the gap, Tianxin deploys what the text calls demon magic.
By the magic.
The sun and the moon go entirely dark. Gale force winds rip through the battlefield, pulling trees out of the ground by their roots, and the sky fills with countless phantom demon lords.
It's a terrifying image.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because it's like bringing a standard sword to a wizard fight.
Yeah.
But from a narrative or a historical perspective, isn't inserting magic into a military text just sort of a cheat code? Like a way for explaining away a devastating chaotic ambush or a sudden dust storm?
That is such a crucial question. And what's fascinating here is how supernatural elements in ancient texts often serve as metaphors.
Metaphors for what?
For the absolute extreme of the fog of war. Let's strip away the supernatural terminology for a moment and just look at the functional mechanism of what is happening to Lu Min and his troops here.
Okay, let's do it.
The sudden absence of light completely neutralizes visual command and control.
Because they can't see the flags or the signals.
Exactly. In an ancient formation, you maintain your line by looking at the banner and looking at the man to your left and your right. When you plunge an army into sudden darkness, you isolate every single soldier.
Wow. Yeah, they're just instantly alone in a crowd.
And then you add the auditory assault. The text mentions uprooted trees and screaming winds.
Right.
If a soldier is blinded, they try to rely on their hearing to locate their unit or, listen for the commanding officer's drums or gongs.
But the wind is too loud.
Right. The deafening roar of the wind acts as an acoustic masking agent. It is simultaneous sensory deprivation and sensory overload.
That sounds literally paralyzing.
It is. The individual soldier is physically isolated by the dark and acoustically deafened by the wind. And at that point, the human brain's pattern recognition software just panics.
It tries to fill in the blanks.
Precisely. When a human being cannot visually or acoustically map their environment in a high-threat situation, the brain fills in the gaps with their worst fears.
Ah, so that is what the demon lords represent.
Yes. The howling of the wind becomes the screaming of phantoms. The shifting shadows become monstrous figures. Tianjin has effectively weaponized the environment to induce a mass psychogenic breakdown.
Man. And in the middle of that blinding chaos, Tianjin simply turns his horse around, steps right back into Lu Min's personal space, and delivers a lethal halberd thrust.
And Lu Min never saw coming.
He's killed instantly, probably because he's, staring at the sky or trying to control a completely panicked horse. But his death is almost secondary to what happens to his army.
Oh, the structural collapse of the Song forces is just immediate and brutal.
The soldiers are blinded, they're deafened, and they completely turn on themselves.
Yeah.
The text describes an uncountable number of casualties resulting directly from the soldiers trampling each other in the dark.
Uncountable.
It is a mass casualty event generated entirely by panic, resulting in the Song forces losing the field and the siege on Xingzhou becoming even tighter.
And this sequence really forces us to analyze how supernatural elements function in these historical military texts. Like you said, it is rarely just an arbitrary narrative device.
Right, it's not just a writer being creative.
No, it's a highly codified metaphor. Consider how a sudden, violent atmospheric anomaly, say a blinding dust storm or a microburst that kicks up blinding debris and obscures the sun.
Yeah.
Consider how that would actually operate on a battlefield. If a commander like Tianjin has the environmental awareness to anticipate that weather front, or even simply the presence of mind to exploit it the moment it hits.
He doesn't even need to use his weapons.
Exactly. He doesn't need to engage the enemy with steel. He lets the kinetic energy of the enemy's own panic do all the work.
Wow.
The trampling deaths described in the text mirror the physics of a modern crowd crush. When density reaches a critical threshold in a panicked crowd, fluid dynamics take over.
The crowd behaves like a liquid.
Yes. And the compressive asphyxia or the blunt force trauma being trampled is just as lethal as enemy arrows.
The panic literally becomes the kinetic weapon.
It does.
That framing really radically shifts the stakes for the commanding officer inside Zhengzhou, young Zongbao.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, he watches this absolute disaster unfold. He sees his general die, he sees his army functionally dissolve into a panicked mob, and his response is pure, concentrated fury.
He's livid.
Zongbao knows that the psychological integrity of the entire city rests on his next move.
Because he is forced into a posture of immediate damage control. He has to reestablish the baseline reality for his troops, proving that the enemy is flesh and blood, not, invincible demons.
So the very next day, Zongbao rides out of the city gates. He's mounted on a striking white horse, flanked by his top generals, Hu Yanjian and Hu Yanda.
And the optics here are vital. The white horse is a beacon of visibility.
Oh, that makes sense. It's a deliberate counter to the blinding darkness of the previous day.
Exactly. It's a statement.
And waiting for him is Shu Tianchen, whose physical description in the text is incredibly aggressive. He has an indigo-colored face, eyes bulging like massive copper bells, and a beard and hair dyed a violent red.
And we can read that physical description through the lens of psychological coding, too.
How so?
Well, in ancient Chinese operatic and martial traditions, colors carry specific informational weight. Indigo and red often denote demonic, fierce, or untamable qualities.
So he's leaning into the demon persona.
Fully. Whether this was literal war paint, a stylized mask, or simply a narrative flourish from the author, the function is exactly the same.
Right.
It is threat display.
Right.
It is designed to lower the enemy's morale before combat even begins, basically reinforcing the narrative that the Song are fighting supernatural entities.
But Zongbao utterly rejects that premise. He rides forward and issues an ultimatum. He demands their surrender and threatens to literally grind them into powder if they don't comply.
Which is exactly what his men need to hear.
Now, Tianqian wants to gauge Zongbao's actual combat capabilities, right? So he deploys a proxy. He sends out a general named Wang Wen to test the Song commander.
It's a classic intelligence-gathering maneuver. Tianqian is unwilling to risk his own command structure until he understands the physics of Zongbao's fighting style.
And Zongbao provides that data very quickly and very violently.
He certainly does.
They clash amidst the deafening roar of war drums. And in just a handful of exchanges, Zongbao finds the angle, channels his momentum, and drives his weapon straight through Wang Wen.
Just knocks him completely out of the saddle, dead.
Dead. And this immediately collapses the disciplined environment Tianqian was trying to maintain because Wang Wen has a brother on the field. And Wang Hu just loses his mind. He screams out about avenging his blood relative and launches this completely uncoordinated, emotion-driven charge directly at Zongbao.
He's not thinking tactically at all.
Not even a little bit. Now watch how Zongbao handles this because it's brilliant. He doesn't meet the enraged attacker with brute force. He mirrors the exact tactic that killed his own man the day before. Zongbao executes a flawless feigned retreat.
Which, like we talked about, the situational awareness required to pull this off mid-combat is immense.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
He does. Zongbao recognizes that Wang Hu's rage has narrowed his cognitive field. Anger causes tunnel vision. Wang Hu is no longer looking at the battlefield. He is only looking at Zongbao's back.
So Zongbao wheels his white horse around and flees toward the flank of the military formation. Wang Hu gives chase, entirely oblivious to his surroundings, and then Zongbao demonstrates the mechanics of a Parthian shot.
Incredible move.
While still in motion, he turns his torso back, draws his bow, and drops Wang Hu with a single, perfectly placed arrow.
And to accurately fire a heavy warbow backwards from the saddle of a galloping horse. I mean, that requires an astonishing level of core stability and proprioception.
That sounds impossible.
It's incredibly difficult. You are essentially decoupling the kinetic movement of your lower body from the fine motor control of your upper body, all while calculating the trajectory of a moving target.
Wow.
It is a masterclass in individual martial dominance.
And the Song troops respond exactly as you would expect, right? Their commander just effortlessly dispatched 2 enemy generals in back-to-back duels.
Their morale just instantly spikes.
General Jian sees this momentum and triggers a massive earth-shaking charge. The Song army is surging forward. They are literally breaking the enemy lines. But just as victory seems mathematically certain, the environment shifts again.
Tianqian realizes his conventional assets are failing.
Yep.
So he re-engages his asymmetric advantage.
He starts chanting. The sky is instantly plunged back into pitch-black darkness. Sand and massive stones are violently whipped through the air, basically acting as blinding shrapnel.
This is chaos.
And out of this artificial night, heavily armored phantom soldiers, described again as demon troops, materialize and tear into the Song lines.
The whiplash there is just total. The Song forces transition from a state of high arousal victory to complete sensory panic in a matter of seconds.
It is total devastation. Zongbao, who just moments ago proved himself to be a virtually untouchable physical combatant, is suddenly powerless.
You cannot stab the wind.
Right. You cannot shoot an arrow into pitch darkness when your eyes are filled with sand. So despite his brilliance, Zongbao is terrified. He's forced to turn that white horse around and flee back to the safety of the city walls alongside Huiyanxian. But not everyone makes it.
No. The rear guard usually suffers.
General Huiyande gets bogged down in the chaos, is swamped by enemy troops, and is captured. He's dragged before the enemy's Grand Marshal Yin Qi, who literally locks him inside a prisoner cage.
So what does this all mean for Zongbao? I mean, he is clearly the superior fighter, outsmarting his enemies in one-on-one combat, but he still loses the battle.
Does individual brilliance even matter when the enemy can literally change the rules of the game at a moment's notice?
That's the core question.
Yeah.
And this sequence forces us to confront a brutal reality about the hierarchy of warfare. It introduces the concept of asymmetric warfare scaling.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, Zonbao's failure proves that tactical mastery does not scale infinitely.
Because martial arts and archery are fundamentally linear. It's one man against one man.
Precisely. Zongbao operates at the absolute pinnacle of linear individual combat. But Tianqian and Yin Qi, They are operating on an exponential curve.
The environment.
Right. Environmental control and mass psychology do not care about how well you draw a bow. If you control the environment, you dictate the behavior of the mass.
Wow, yeah.
Tianjin bypasses Zongbao entirely by attacking the sensory input of the 10,000 men behind him. Zongbao's individual brilliance has a ceiling, and Tianjin just dropped a mountain on it.
Man, and this marks a massive pivot in our source material.
It really does.
We pull away from the blinding sand and the screaming horses of the battlefield, and we transition into the quiet, analytical space of the enemy war room.
A very different vibe.
Very. Marshal Yingqi and Xu Tianqian are debriefing the engagement, and what is striking here is their complete lack of hubris.
Yeah, they're surprisingly grounded.
They just routed the legendary Yang Zongbao using terrifying asymmetric tactics, but they are incredibly sober about their actual position.
Because they're looking at the telemetry of the battle, not the mythology of it. Tianjin acknowledges the math. They won the field, yes, but they lost 2 highly capable battlefield commanders in the Wang brothers.
That's a heavy cost.
It is. And furthermore, inflicting casualties in the open field does not solve their primary objective.
Which is the city.
Right, the structural reality of the fortified city of Jiangsu.
As you said earlier, you cannot intimidate a brick wall.
Exactly.
Tianjin explicitly states that the city is just too heavily defended to be taken with their current footprint. They need a massive injection of literal boots on the ground. They need to surge troops from their homeland.
And this realization moves the text from tactical battlefield management into the realm of grand geopolitical strategy.
So a dispatch rider is sent back to their sovereign, King Limu. And here we are introduced to the king's right-hand strategist, Chancellor Hu Tianzang.
A very important figure.
Hu Tianzang looks at the stalemate at Jiangsu, and he doesn't just suggest a simple reinforcement. He architects a multinational geopolitical pincer movement designed to crush the Song dynasty from multiple vectors simultaneously.
Hu Tianzang is operating on the macroeconomic level of warfare. He understands that the most potent weapon in antiquity isn't a spell or a sword.
Yes, a treaty.
It is a treaty.
So he outlines the specific economic and political levers required to build this massive coalition. He starts with the Senliu state.
Okay.
To purchase their military compliance, he proposes a marriage alliance, essentially locking their royal families together to guarantee non-aggression and mutual support. And he sweetens the deal with massive shipments of gold and pearls.
Which is brilliant. The marriage alliance is the ultimate collateral. It is a biological treaty. But the gold and pearls provide the immediate liquidity needed to mobilize an army.
Right, you need cash to march. Then he turns to the Hishui state. To secure their forces, he doesn't offer gold. He offers the most dangerous currency of all, land.
Oh, wow.
He promises them heavy, highly strategic territories in the Central Plains once the Song dynasty is eradicated.
Let's examine the mechanics of that promise because it's wild. Promising land you do not currently occupy is the geopolitical equivalent of fiat currency.
Just printing money.
Literally. Hu Tianzang is essentially printing military power out of thin air. He is leveraging the future conquest of the Song dynasty to pay for the army required to conquer the Song dynasty.
That is an incredibly sophisticated, high-leverage economic maneuver.
It is. It allows King Limu to exponentially multiply his kinetic force on the battlefield without draining his own domestic population or treasury.
And the execution of this plan is sweeping. The purchased armies of Senluo and Heishui are directed to march from Kizu to hit the vulnerable rear of the Song forces.
The rear guard.
Exactly. Simultaneously, King Limu's own son, the third prince, will march a fresh army directly to the front.
It's the classic anvil and hammer strategy, right?
Yeah.
But scaled up to cover thousands of square miles of topography.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The enemy realizes that magic isn't enough to take a brick wall, so they pivot entirely to geopolitics.
Yeah.
It's like watching a chess player realize they can't mate with their current pieces, so they just buy 3 extra queens to put on the board.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really shows how alliances of convenience are formed. Land promises and marriage treaties were the ultimate currency of ancient diplomacy, allowing a military force to multiply its power exponentially.
And the logistics of the numbers involved here are staggering. The Crown Prince of Senluo, Meng Xin, mobilizes 40,000 troops.
40,000.
The Heishui general, Bai Shengzheng, brings 30,000 troops. And the third prince arrives with 40,000 Chang troops.
Oh, that.
We are talking about the sudden materialization of 110,000 fresh soldiers converging on a city that is already buckling under a siege.
We have to consider the sheer logistical terror of 110,000 men moving across ancient infrastructure.
Just feeding them.
The caloric requirement alone to feed that many humans and draft animals daily requires a localized economic collapse wherever they march.
They'd eat everything in sight.
Everything.
Yeah.
The intelligence footprint is massive. Zongbao, sitting inside Zhangzhou, would feel the approach of this coalition like an earthquake long before he ever saw their banners.
And that leads us to the arrival of this overwhelming force. The third prince establishes his western camp and waits for the allied forces to link up.
Right.
When the Senluo prince, Mengxin, arrives, the atmospheric tone of the enemy command completely shifts.
So.
Well, the original commanders, Yin Qi and Tianxin, had developed a really healthy respect for the lethal capabilities of the Song forces. They knew Zongbao was dangerous.
Because they'd fought him.
Exactly. Mengxin, however, arrives radiating pure, unearned arrogance. He dismisses the need for a protracted siege, loudly declaring that they will just draw the Song army out and crush them in an open field battle.
Typical. The infusion of fresh troops often brings an infusion of dangerous overconfidence. Mengxin hasn't witnessed Songbao's archery or the discipline of the Song infantry.
He has no idea what he's walking into.
None at all.
Meanwhile, inside the walls of Shangzhou, Commander Zongbao is processing the reality of this 110,000-man coalition. He understands that sitting passively behind walls while an army of that magnitude organizes itself is a death sentence.
You can't just let them set up.
Right. He has to disrupt their staging process. So he launches a highly risky, desperate counteroffensive. He hands 20,000 troops to his generals Huyan Xian and Zhang Da.
Okay.
They deploy in a standard three-route formation. A general named Yi Wu takes the left flank, Zhang Da anchors the center, and Huyan Xin commands the right.
Deploying 20,000 men into a three-route formation against a massively superior numerical force is an exercise in extreme discipline.
Why is this so risky?
Well, the spaces between those three routes are the most vulnerable points on the battlefield. The entire survival of the Song counteroffensive relies on those three columns maintaining synchronous movement and unbroken communication.
If one lags behind, the whole thing falls apart.
Exactly.
And they are marching directly into a situation heavily clouded by personal vendetta. They engage the Senluo forces commanded by Prince Mengxin. Mengxin is an imposing figure, fighting with an iron hammer and dual swords.
Very intimidating loadout.
Yeah. And he reveals that he isn't just fighting for the marriage alliance or the gold, he has a blood debt. The Song forces had previously killed his brother, Prince Jinlong, and Mengxin is there to extract a toll.
And the introduction of a personal vendetta destabilizes the rational calculus of the battlefield. It guarantees that the combat will be attritional and highly aggressive because the commander is willing to absorb higher casualties to achieve a personal kill.
And the Song general, Yi Wu, rises to the challenge and charges Mengxin. They lock into a brutal, grinding duel that lasts for 50 grueling rounds.
50 rounds, that's a marathon.
Neither man can find the fatal angle. They are perfectly matched in stamina and leverage. But while the visual focus of the battlefield is pulled toward this dramatic duel, the geopolitical trap we discussed earlier violently snaps shut.
Right. The coalition forces finally leverage their numbers to execute the structural destruction of the Song formation.
The Heishui general, Bai Shengjiang, launches a devastating flanking maneuver directly into the middle of the Song lines. He drives his forces like a physical wedge, violently severing the Song army into two completely disconnected halves.
And to understand why this is catastrophic, we have to examine how ancient command structures operate under stress.
Okay.
A military formation is not just a crowd of guys with swords, it is a nervous system. The commanding officer is the brain, and the banners and drums are the synaptic signals.
Oh, I like that analogy.
So when Bai Shengjiang physically separates the left flank from the center, he effectively severs the spinal cord of the Song army.
The men on the left literally cannot receive data from the men on the right.
Exactly. And when soldiers lose contact with their command structure, the default psychological fallback is self-preservation. Panic is highly contagious. The moment the line breaks, the defensive integrity of the shield wall evaporates, exposing the flanks of every individual soldier.
And right at the apex of this structural collapse, the Senluo forces deploy an asset that completely shatters whatever morale the Song troops have left.
This is where it gets crazy.
The text introduces Princess Baihua, the sister of Mengxin. She had aggressively petitioned her father to let her join the vanguard to avenge their dead brother.
Right.
She enters the chaos of the severed lines wielding dual swords and a highly exotic specialized weapon, the flying meteor hammer.
The introduction of the meteor hammer into a broken infantry formation is mechanically devastating.
Let's set the stage. The Song general Zhengda sees that Yi Wu is bogged down and the formation is collapsing. He attempts to reestablish the command node by charging forward to support Yi Wu.
Trying to fix the spinal cord.
Exactly. But Princess Baihua intercepts him. She deploys the meteor hammer and strikes Zhengda squarely in the chest with such immense kinetic force that it kills him on impact.
Let's break down the physics and the psychology of the meteor hammer because it's fascinating.
Yeah, how does it actually work?
Functionally, it is a dense metal weight tethered to a long length of chain or rope. Unlike a rigid weapon like a sword or a spear, which operates on linear thrusts and arcs, a flexible weapon operates on centripetal force.
Spinning it.
Right. By spinning the weight, the user generates massive kinetic energy. When released, that energy is transferred instantly to a pinpoint target.
We have this incredible female warrior, Princess Baihua, who completely turns the tide of the battle with this very exotic weapon. But notice how quickly the Song strategy fell apart the moment their formation was physically split.
Yes.
Why are armies so fragile when their lines are broken?
Well, it bypasses standard defenses completely. A shield is designed to block a rigid object. If you throw a meteor hammer at a shield, the flexible tether simply wraps around the edge of the shield, and the weighted head continues its arc directly into the defender's body.
Oh, wow. So blocking it actually makes it worse in a way.
Exactly. Furthermore, the visual and acoustic signature of a whistling weight flying through the air is entirely alien to a standard infantryman.
So you have a Song army that has just had its lines physically severed. They are surrounded by an unfamiliar coalition force, and suddenly this exotic whistling weapon drops out of the sky and caves in the chest of the commanding officer trying to save them.
It's a nightmare scenario.
The result is absolute, unmitigated collapse. The moment Zhang Da's body hits the ground, the enemy unleashes a localized hail of crossbow bolts. The Song forces are routed.
Just completely broken.
Yi Wu is quickly overwhelmed and killed. Ouyang Xian barely manages to carve his way out, fleeing all the way back to the very edge of the Xiangzhou city moat.
The anatomy of this rout is a textbook example of command decapitation.
Right.
When the structural integrity of the formation is breached, and the focal point of authority Zhang Da is instantly erased by an unpredictable weapon, the mental architecture of the soldiers dissolves. They stop fighting as a unit and start dying as individuals.
Which brings us to the most insidious and devastating sequence. We look at the immediate aftermath of this slaughter. Inside the coalition war room, there is celebration.
Understandably.
Marshal Yin Qi and the third prince are reveling in the deaths of Zhang Da and Yi Wu. But Yin Qi is an incredibly shrewd tactician, and he cuts the celebration short. He anticipates the exact psychological state of his opponent.
Yin Qi engages in high-level empathy here, not out of compassion, but out of tactical necessity.
Right, he's getting in Zongbao's head.
He models Yang Zongbao's internal state perfectly.
Yin Qi tells the third prince that Zongbao is going to be blindingly furious. Zongbao just lost his top lieutenants in an incredibly humiliating, messy engagement.
He's going to want blood.
Exactly. And Yin Qi then admits something really profound for a military commander. He openly acknowledges that Zongbao's martial arts are simply too superior.
Which takes a lot of self-awareness.
It does. Yin Qi states plainly that even with their massive numerical advantage, if they engage Zongbao in a fair, direct fight while he is fueled by this level of rage, the coalition might actually lose.
It is a remarkable moment of ego suppression by Yin Qi. He correctly assesses that his enemy's primary asset, which is individual kinetic lethality, is a variable he cannot confidently control.
So he just opts out of that game entirely.
Exactly. He must completely remove that variable from the equation.
So Yin Qi proposes a pivot away from magic, away from direct infantry clashes, and away from exotic weapons. He designs a purely psychological trap built entirely upon the local topography.
Geography becomes the weapon.
He points out that roughly 15 miles away from the walls of Xiangzhou, there is a very specific geographical feature known as Jinshanlong, or the Gold Mountain Cage.
The geology of the track is everything here. The name itself dictates the function.
It is a box canyon. It features impossibly high, sheer mountain walls on both sides, and crucially, only one incredibly narrow pathway leading into the valley.
Classic choke point.
Yin Qi's plan is chilling in its simplicity. They are going to strike their camp, pull entirely back from the city walls, and reposition their entire army at the foot of Gold Mountain.
Just pack up and leave.
Yep. They will deliberately bait Zongbao into chasing them, draw his furious vanguard through that narrow choke point, and then simply seal the door behind them. They aren't going to fight Zongbao's martial arts. They are going to lock him in a geological cage and let starvation kill him over the course of several dozen days.
And once the elite tactical core of the Song army is slowly starving to death in a valley 15 miles away, well, the brick walls of Xiangzhou become functionally irrelevant.
You can just walk right into the city.
Exactly. You've removed the defenders without touching the walls.
It is a flawless strategy, but it requires one vital component. The victim has to willfully walk into the cage.
Right. They have to choose to go in.
The trap only springs as Zongbao's psychology overrides his tactical training. And this is where we witness the catastrophic failure of an otherwise brilliant mind. Back inside Jiangsu, Zongbao is drowning in grief and rage over his dead generals.
We need to examine the neuroscience of command under extreme emotional duress here. Grief and rage do not just make you feel bad emotionally, they fundamentally alter how your brain processes data.
It's a chemical reaction.
It is. A massive spike in cortisol and adrenaline shifts control away from the prefrontal cortex, which is the area responsible for complex planning, risk assessment, logic, and hands it to the amygdala, which deals in highly reactive, binary fight-or-flight responses.
Oh, wow. So he's literally not thinking straight.
Zongbao is literally chemically incapable of evaluating the battlefield objectively.
And we see this play out in the War Council. General Deng Wen, one of Zongbao's remaining officers, tries desperately to intervene. Deng Wen is not blinded by grief. He looks at the data. The enemy has a massive numerical advantage, yet they suddenly break the siege and retreat 15 miles to a mountainous choke point.
It makes no tactical sense.
Right. Deng Wen explicitly warns Zongbao that this is obviously a trap, and begs him to maintain their defensive posture behind the walls.
Deng Wen is acting as the external prefrontal cortex that Zongbao has temporarily lost. He is mapping the behavior of the enemy against rational expectations and finding a massive discrepancy.
It's agonizing to read. It's like watching the protagonist in a horror movie walk past all the warning signs directly into the haunted house.
Don't go in there.
Exactly. Zongbao literally used a fake retreat to kill Wang Hu earlier, but his ego is so huge he doesn't think the enemy could possibly use the exact same tactic on him.
This raises an important question about leadership and emotional regulation. Yin Qi perfectly weaponized Zongbao's grief and pride. Strategic brilliance requires objectivity.
And Zongbao lost his.
Completely. The moment a leader makes it personal, their predictability becomes their ultimate weakness, leading them straight into the cage.
The ego rejects the data. Zongbao dismisses Deng Wen with absolute contempt. He claims the enemy possesses only brute courage and lacks any real strategic depth. Such a fatal miscalculation.
Zongbao actually stands in front of his council and boasts, "Just watch me destroy them."
It's so painful to watch this unfold.
It really is. So the execution the next morning is a masterstroke of manipulation. Zongbao strips the city of almost its entire defense force, taking Huan Jian, Lu Qing, and even the protesting Deng Wen, and marches on Gold Mountain.
Think about the fluid dynamics of what happens next. The Song army is a massive, pressurized body of water, and Zongbao's rage is the gravity pulling it forward.
The coalition forces deploy their decoys perfectly. Huan Xin engages Shu Tianxian. Tianxian barely crosses weapons before faking a panic and fleeing.
Hating the hook.
Then, Marshal Yin Qi himself rides out to face Zongbao. Yin Qi absorbs a few strikes just to sell the engagement, and then abruptly turns his mount and gallops desperately toward the narrow, imposing entrance of the Gold Mountain cage.
Yin Qi acts as the one-way valve in our fluid dynamics analogy.
Zongbao, his vision narrowed entirely to the back of Yin Qi's armor, doesn't look at the sheer cliff faces. He doesn't look at the narrowing paths.
All of it. Driven entirely by his ego and his need for a kill, Zongbao spurs his horse and plunges directly into the canyon, dragging his entire army through the choke point right behind him.
That's or.
The momentum of his own massive force pushes him deep into the trap, ensuring that when the coalition seals that narrow exit, reversing course is physically and logistically impossible.
The jaw of the trap snaps shut. Yin Qi has neutralized the greatest warrior on the field without having to defeat him in combat.